Welcome to the 16th episode of the Nerdom and Other Nonsense Anime Podcast, your go-to source for episodic reviews of Spring 2017's best currently airing anime. Today marks the 9th week of this season, so we're moving down the final stretch into the final arcs of many of this season's shows. My name is Bcom. I think something is looking back at me from my bathroom. It just blinked. I should probably clean it. And also with me is Leo.
Yeah, I try not to let my bathroom ever get to that point, but, you know.
I think I'm going to finally take the hazmat crew in there and get it done this weekend. Oh. Sometime in between the E3 conferences when I can't wait for Sony to start, I'll just get in there and clean it up.
Yeah, when Sony start? Is that Monday?
That's, Monday night around 9 p.m. or something like that.
Jesus.
I think.
Man,
yeah,
I'm an old guy.
Well, it's better than Bethesda, which is midnight tonight when we're recording. So
that's weird. Okay.
It is really weird. Yeah.
But anyways, you ready to get this stuff started?
I am ready for the Cheshire Cat.
Cheshire. How do you say that?
It's either Cheshire if you're like British or like Cheshire if you're American like us.
I always read it as Cheshire because I guess if you sound it out, that's what it is. But anyways, Sundays, we have Alice and Zoroku, episode 9, where the Cheshire Cat smiles. That doesn't happen until the very end of the episode.
And hey, at least it happens, though.
Yeah. And then when she was doing that drawing, I guess that was supposed to be the Cheshire Cat. I thought it was the pig.
Also, we'll get to that, but when she was doing that drawing, she was going...
Yes, she was.
I know you noticed that now because I pointed it out.
Love it. So anyways, we start off with Hattori and Ayuma. They've returned back home after the little confrontation the last episode. And Hattori like kind of breaks down in her little entryway. She doesn't know what to do. She gets extremely hungry whenever she uses her power, to like the point that she says she almost can't even stand at times. And she's just kind of sitting there moping, and her mom comes over, you know, because your mom's going to be like, hey, are you okay? What's wrong? And, you know, and I think Hattori asks her mother a little bit about stuff, and her mom's like, you know, just no. I'm sorry. Hattori hugs her mother.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know,
she asks her, like, which mom are you right now? Because she doesn't know if it's, like, the real her mom or the one that's under her spell, basically.
You know, and her mom just kind of, you know, shrugs it off because it's a weird question. Who knows? It's a little kid. They say weird stuff sometimes. So, you know, but she does her best to comfort her. And, you know, that's good and all. I felt like the show just gets everything done really well on like how people would literally react in real life. I think it's so explainable, unlike another show called Recreators, which the reasons people do things in that show, I just don't get. But anyways, back to this show. We'll get to that later. And I just watched it just before we started recording, so it's really on top of my mind. Ugh. Yeah,
that's a weird episode.
Yeah, then just to finish off that scene, there's you get a little bit more of the storybook story from not the first episode, but the last episode.
The last one.
Yeah. And basically she ends it off with the witch became an evil witch and was burned at the stake. So that's gruesome.
Yeah.
But as of last episode, Alice had like passed out after the little confrontation, and she wakes up at home and like she sits up and her stomach growls because she's hungry, and then suddenly she remembers, she's like, oh yeah, and she runs down the stairs. She's yelling for Zoroku, and he's like, I'm right here, it's cool. And like as soon as Alice like kind of realizes this, she starts like crying and hugs him, and it's pretty adorable. I liked it.
That was a cute scene, yeah, for sure.
And then like you have like Sanae and the twins Yonaga and Asahi are like also watching this scene with like a kind of a slight concern in their faces. They're just like, all right, she's freaking out on us.
Yeah.
And then this last part totally is another example of like, I am completely convinced this the writer grew up around little girls, because this is the perfect example of like when sometimes little girls decide they're going to be the mother figure. This is exactly what happens. So like Zoroku goes to leave and Alice yells, call me if anything happens, and call me even if nothing happens. Dude, I laughed so hard.
Yeah, that's really cute.
Yeah. I
love her.
It was just so great. It's like something a little girl would do that she's mimicking that she saw a mother do because she wants to be like motherly type figure. It's pretty great. there's just a bunch of blah blah stuff about taking a bath. It was kind of funny. But then like Alice finally asks why they're taking a bath, and like Sana explains that she says Grandpa, which is Zoroku, asks him to stay the night. And like, of course, Alice gets like super excited about this. She's super like happy. She's like, oh my God, it's a sleepover. This is going to be great. And all this fun stuff. Did you put something down about this? Something about her eyes, right?
Oh yeah, her eyes like light up like old like shoujo era eyes with like stars in them. They're like, they grow to like 2 times their size. It's just really cute. She's like bouncing off the walls. And because of that, I liked like all of the facial reactions in this episode, and especially in this one scene where she's like jumping up and down and really happy.
I will say this is probably one of my favorite episodes, because it's definitely up there if it's not the top favorite, because the show's basically doing what I wanted it to do. Yeah,
it's really good. This episode, mostly, except for the next part.
Yeah, this is a setup to something else I really liked. But anyways, the twins are like really surprised Alice even takes baths and let alone washes herself without using magic.
That was really funny. She's like, she never did that before.
Yeah. Yeah, that's because at the facility Alice never took baths, so that's, it's just blown away. Yeah, and then I didn't even write in it. They just did another bath scene.
Yeah.
They are starting to do them a little too often, I feel like, but
yeah, that's my only issue.
They're done very tastefully. There's like,
yeah, I mean, they show these little girls like naked from the side, like one of them at least, like one of the Hinagiri sisters, and I'm just like, okay, I don't need to be seeing this, but also it's like it's not Eromanga Sensei either.
No,
like, so it's somewhere in between those two things. I don't know what to call that level of fan service, but it's like, yeah, there's just been too many bath scenes. Let's like move on. So, but they did something cool after that.
Yeah, this bath scene did justify itself, and I'll get to that in just a second. So later, afterwards, they've eaten like this ridiculous amount of food, and like I want to say there was like these 2 large stacks of pizza boxes. Isn't pizza really expensive in Japan?
Yeah, and it's also like really small, which they animated pretty correctly. Like those slices are like maybe like Domino's sized slices. They're really tiny, and yeah, they're expensive.
Like they had like hundreds of dollars of food that they just ate. It was pretty ridiculous. And then again, there's another spot where the twins were like surprised again when Alice is like doing the dishes by hand, not using magic. So this is where the bath scene sort of justified itself, and I thought this little scene was super cool. So both the twins' hair is down because of the bath earlier, and you still know which one's which because one of them has longer hair than the other. And like all 3 of the girls are just off in the room goofing off with the futons, and suddenly Alice, and I was starting to question it too, Alice has noticed that their personalities switched, and they talked about this earlier about how even they or their mother couldn't tell which one was which. Like they had a total role reversal. I had to sit there, and just before Alice said it, I was sitting there. I was thinking. I was like, wait, isn't the short hair the bossy one?
I was so confused too. I had no idea what hell happened.
I was so confused. But then Alice goes, "Hey, you guys switch personalities," and then they just like almost laugh it off. And then like Yonaga attacks Asahi and starts like tickling her neck. I never considered necks ticklish, so that's new to me.
Well, that little side part of your neck, like that can be really ticklish. Where Sanai was tickling, or no, not Sanai, where Alice was tickling her, or whoever. Yeah,
Alice ended up attacking her too, and then like Sanai stops by and she's like, "Shh," and then closes the door, and then we see how like excited she was. She wanted to be part of their little group. And you weren't happy.
So, okay, this is my only other slight problem with this episode. It's just that, like, Sanae gets, like, too touchy-feely with the little girls sometimes. And, like, she was like, oh, twin sisters. I wish I could have tickled them. And I was like, okay, calm down, Sanae.
She's like she's got, like, an old perverted man spirit inside her.
Exactly. That was kind of funny. So, anyway.
Yeah. Zoroku finally gets home, and Alice gets up out of bed, and she's like super clinging on him. He's like, "Get off me, you'll smell like smoke." Like she just won't let go. It's just another cute little interaction between the two. The twins end up leaving the next day, and Zoroku goes back to work, and Alice is like still angry at Hattori. I almost said hangry.
Hangry is like a thing too. Yeah.
No, it's totally a thing.
Grab a Snickers.
So, and like Alice is like so hangry. I did angry at Hattori. It doesn't help that I want to say Hattori too. At Hattori for freezing everybody. And Alice says she will get her good, and that's when she's drawing the little picture that I first thought was a pig, but now that I thought about it, I was like, oh, I think that was the Cheshire Cat. But whatever. So Ayuma goes to visit like Hattori and ask her why she hasn't been going to school. Hattori says it's just for the best that she doesn't interact with her anymore. You know, she's in danger around here and whatnot. And she also says that the police have like stopped by a couple times, but she keeps sending them away every time. Hattori has totally convinced herself she's an evil witch. And she also explains that her parents fight because she couldn't live up to her mother's expectations. So she thinks it's all her fault. And she has to stay around them. She's not running away anymore. She has to stay at home because when her magic wears off, they go back to fighting. And she can't have that. Ayuma is, obviously upset. She can't visit her friend anymore. And then we see a shot of her walking back to the street where the incident happened. And I totally later justifies it that she's obviously trying to find an answer to their problem by going back to the scene. She wants to get a hold of Alice. And that's what I thought when later on the show did explain it. But Yamada and Ryu pay a visit to Hattori's residence. And like as Yamada is talking to the mother, they find it strange she doesn't remember talking to them earlier on the phone. And like Hattori walks by and sees her mother talking to them, and she uses her magic, and the show just does this hard black screen cut to Yamada and Ryu getting into the car and saying, well, that's over. And then they're like, Ryu wonders what it was that's over. And then like they start to drive away and talk about where they eat, but then suddenly he slams on the brakes, and he's been smart enough to be leaving little marks on his hand every time they go and visit her. And now
this reminded me of did you ever see the movie Memento?
Yeah, no, I totally thought of Memento also.
Oh yeah, totally the same.
Memento, yeah. I immediately went, wow, this is straight from Memento. But and he looks at his hand and he's like, man, we've been had 5 times. And he's like, but we need to somehow get to her, to talk to her, to kind of help her with her problem. And the only people who can talk to her are the only ones she allows in, and they're looking at a picture of Ayumi. So that's obvious what they're going to do next, try to contact her. Meanwhile, Ayumi has been searching the street where the incident occurred for Alice, exactly what I thought was going to happen. She thinks if she finds her, she might be able to help Hattori. Quick flashback of like Hattori basically telling Ayuma to leave her alone because she might get hurt. While she is searching for the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland. What? Oh, sorry, man. While she's searching around, the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland's head like appears in front of her, and it makes it like super evil grin when this like doorway opens up underneath her, and she falls down into like Alice's world where we've seen glimpses of before. And then like Alice comes like flying in all dramatic, and she's going hoo, 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 doing like evil laughs and all those kinds of stuff. It's like cute and disturbing at the same time for me.
Yeah, and she's got like a queen's crown on, as if she's like the Red Queen from Alice in Wonderland.
Alice says, I'm going to teach you a lesson. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, she wanted to smash them last time, and would have if their powers weren't canceling each other out. So like this is like it was almost looked all cute and stuff, but this could be really bad.
It could be, yeah.
Whew. But that's here's what I got.
Here's my question. Earlier in the series, did they ever say anything about like when Alice was being raised, that they like told her the story of Alice in Wonderland or something? Like, or is this whole show like a retelling of Alice in Wonderland?
I think
I'm a little confused.
I think it's a retelling. It's interesting. I just finished another book where the main bad guy turned out to be Rumpelstiltskin, and he did grant wishes, and his origin story was helping a girl like turn straw into gold, but she eventually betrayed him or something like that.
Huh.
But that's all that touched on it. And that's, so there's like, I don't know, 2 pages out of 200 pages, 200 plus that only touched on it. It was just kind of used him as like a rough base. And that's what I feel like they're doing here. And then they're just, when they think it's fun and convenient, they throw in some little Alice in Wonderland stuff to go on.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. Like like I thought that like maybe the evil research dude, like Kito, I think was his name, had like tried to channel her powers into like some kind of like framework, like by telling her the story of Alice in Wonderland and saying like you can create your own Wonderland. But it seems more like she just did it on her own. But so she's like the Red Queen, but then she's also like a dream of Alice, and it's, I don't know. It's like a lot of like Alice in Wonderland stuff getting all thrown into a bunch, and I guess it makes sense, but it's also a little weird to me. I don't know. I would like that like more clarification from that before the show ends. But we'll see.
Maybe. Yeah. But how about the next show?
All right. So this week we had another episode of Little Witch Academia, episode 22. Oh boy. Okay, so Ursula.
Dude, I didn't read your notes. I just read your beginning, and we both had the same reaction.
Yeah. So before the credits, there's like a very short part with Ursula, who's like thinking to herself, number one, I can't let Kwa go unchecked anymore. I need to do something about her. And number two, I have to tell Akko everything. And I'm just thinking to myself, please fucking do it. Finally tell her. So, okay. The episode then kicks off after the credits with Andrew, who's in a meeting with his father, and also the father of that Appleton Academy douchebag who had the showdown, talking about the argument between their two countries, well, not their two countries, their country and another country, over this stupid soccer goal that's blown way out of proportion. And now it's to a point where they're thinking about going to war with each other for like the fourth time since the Middle Ages. So I assume these two countries are basically like France and England at this point.
Yeah, I was going to say they have to be European for sure.
Yeah. So Andrew wants to maintain peace, but his father and his father's, colleague are not so sure if that can actually be achieved. After the meeting, Andrew's looking at Akko's hat, which he still has, and he thinks that if she'd been there, she would have told him he was a coward for not standing up more to his father. And then the scene ends when Diana's like messenger owl arrives, or like her family's messenger owl, and Andrew goes to send a message to Akko with it through Diana. And I thought that was really... I don't remember any other part in the show where they had messenger owls from like Harry Potter.
I don't remember seeing it before now either. I'm pretty sure we would have definitely made a note about it.
Yeah, I thought that was cute that they're throwing that part of Harry Potter lore in there now too. So yeah, Diana gets the message and goes to look for Akko in her room, but Lotte tells her she's in Ursula's office, and Susi's like, oh, Diana's looking for Akko. She must be up to something. So yeah, Akko's talking to Ursula, and Ursula's like, okay, I have some things to tell you. And so she's like, first of all, the seventh and final word, it's Fasanshir Shirila or something. And that. Ursula doesn't know its meaning. She never figured it out, but tells Akko that it lies within her heart. And I think we see a flashback of Chariot learning this information way back in the day. Okay, then Ursula is about to reveal everything when she's like that she's been holding back for the entire length of the show, but Lotte knocks on the door.
And this is where I made my first note. I said, oh, for fuck's sake, how many times can Ursula be stopped from telling her she's Shiny Chariot? Then later on, I had to come back and put a note that said, all right, her reveal later makes up for it, I guess.
Yeah, even really at this point, I was thinking, like, it's better for Akko to see it than to be told it.
Yes.
Like, she needs to see it. So, okay. So, yeah, Diana, Susi, and Lotte, like, walk in, and Diana tells Akko she has the message from Andrew, and he's going to be waiting for her in town at 3 o'clock, and she has to run off to make that. So, they can continue later. So, Diana, though, stays behind with Ursula and tells her there's something that she'd like to ask. And I thought that Diana had figured out that she was Chariot at this point, but instead she asks Ursula if she's aware of this recent huge buildup in magic energy that has surpassed even the output of the Sorcerer's Stone. And then she believes it coincides with Kwa's arrival and her creation of the SSS device. But before Ursula can really answer, she sees Kwa flying somewhere outside the window and runs to get her broom. But as she gets to her broom, she reaches out to it and then realizes she can't use it. She can't fly because she was affected by that Wagandia tree pollen that Leo called out last episode.
Yep,
Leo with the sharp eyes yet again. So She instead just runs after Qua on foot.
Wasn't it supposed to make them more difficult to use magic also?
Yeah, I thought it was like it could remove your magic entirely. Yeah.
No, you could never fly again, and I believe it would just like lessen your magic, but you could eventually get that back. Or was it the other way around?
I think it might be you can definitely never fly again. That was for sure.
Either way, her magic's completely unaffected, as we later see. And the show did, if it showed you something and then it told you about it, because when she went to grab her broom, you see her hesitate and she's reaching for it, but then she pulls her hand back and then runs off. And then the show, and like I totally got it right there. I was like, oh, I was right. She can't fly a broom anymore. She was affected by it. And then they flat out have Diana say, oh, was she affected by the Wagon? I was like, man, you just, I mean, when he shows you something, a really good show will show you all the information you need. If it's telling you and has to handhold you, I don't like it. It's just this little smudge, but I saw it and I was like, man, it was just so obvious.
Yeah, I think that's just like something for kids, basically, that explanation.
I think
for people who weren't paying attention. Yeah. So anyway, so Akko makes it to town and finds Andrew, and they discuss things, and then they see this mob walking by chanting "No goal, no goal," and Akko dumps some foreshadowing on us, saying that this is when we need Shiny Chariot, because she thinks if they'd only go to one of her shows, their negative emotions would just be blown away and it could fix everything. And I assume this is how the show is going to sort of end. But Andrew tells her her idealism is nice and all, but she should do it herself and not rely on Shiny Chariot to do it for her. And Akko realizes he's right, and she like does this cute pose and says, "I'll definitely do it. Watch me, Andrew."
It was cute.
And they both laugh, and then Akko sees one of Qua's cubes come floating by her and towards the angry mob, and she recognizes it from like other encounters and chases after it and forgets her hat yet again. And Andrew's looking down at the hat sitting on the bench, and he's thinking to himself the same words he just said: "What's the point of anything if you don't do it yourself?" This time thinking about his situation with his own father. So Lotte and Susie spot Akko chasing after the cube and catch up with her, and they all know that bad things happen whenever these cubes are around. Meanwhile, Qua is floating in the air, watching from above as the cubes like intermingle with this angry mob, and one of them floats into a nearby jumbotron, and Qua uses her like iPad to change the video on the jumbotron to one of like the other country's fans like burning like jerseys or something, and then the whole crowd is like incensed and they start like ripping their clothes off. They're pissed off. And then Akko chases after one of the cubes long enough to see Qua in the air, like moving away, and she runs up to a rooftop to tell her what's going on. And Qua tells Akko that she developed the cubes to convert human emotions into energy. And Akko asks her why she would do this. Why would you take advantage of these people? And Qua says it's for noir fuel spirit, or the powerful magical energy that comes from human emotions. And she's doing this because magic is disappearing from the world. But if they can harvest magic from human emotions by using this like crowd psychology, she can complete her world reconstruction plan. Okay, Hitler. So Akko tells Qua that she won't let magic go away and that Qua should just stop. But Qua says, like, how are you going to make it not go away? And feelings aren't enough to just keep magic around. Somebody has to take action and do something. And Akko pleads that magic should be used to make people happy. That's the reason it exists. And Qua tells her that she sounds just like Chariot, and Chariot failed for the same reason, for chasing after unachievable dreams. And so then Qua, turning totally evil, sicks her cubes on Akko, and they start attacking her. They form this like giant lizard monster that chases after her, and then they change into like a giant spider that shoots like a web that like traps her in a little cocoon midair. And so she's like, just sit there and watch, Akko. But at this point, Ursula bursts out onto the roof, and she fires this like magical energy bolt through the spider, taking it out. So Akko's free. But then the lizard monster like swallows Ursula, but Ursula from within it creates this magical explosion that blows her way out of there, and she floats into the night sky, and it's like slow motion, and Akko can see like the tips of her hair now glowing red against the moonlight in the background. And Akko looks up at her and whispers, Sherio? She's finally realizing. So Qua prods Akko for only now realizing that Ursula has been lying to her this whole time. And Ursula can't even look at Akko. She basically just turned away from her and apologizes for keeping the secret from her. And Qua tells Ursula to tell them about what really happened when Sherio went away 10 years ago. And what she did to the moon, which is kind of mysterious. Yeah,
because they don't go anywhere with that.
Yeah, we get a shot of the moon and it has like kind of like a trigger cross on it. I don't know. But anyway, it's funny. So Ursula grabs her left arm tightly when like Qua says this, but says nothing. And then Qua tells Akko about dream fuel spirit, which is the magic to convert the power of dreaming into strong magical energy, which she says that Sherio used. And those whose dreams are absorbed, lost their magic ability. So Qua is basically insinuating that Sherio at her shows drained people's dreams out of them to absorb their magic. And so this would explain why Akko has very little magic ability and like can't even fly a broom. And because we know that Diana was at one of those shows, why she lost her magical ability as a child and had to work so hard to gain it back.
The show kind of glosses over this fact, for now at least. But I thought I had the exact same thought. I'm like, oh, that explains what happened to Diana and she lost her magic, which was mysterious.
Yeah, I thought that was a really cool way of bringing that back.
But then that just shows if you work really hard, you can get your magic back. So, because Diana's like a badass.
Yeah.
So that's a good lesson for Akko there. You know, just be bad at it. You
should learn from that.
It's possible. Yeah.
And so like Ursula is kind of like protesting a little bit, and she clearly wants to explain more about what happened, but she realizes that it's the truth. Like she tells Akko that she had hoped that Akko had never actually been to one of her shows, but like the more that she trained her, the more that she saw her, in all likelihood, it was her that absorbed Akko's magic at that show. And Akko is like really upset. She keeps repeating, "It must be a lie. It must be a lie."
Yeah.
And she thinks back on all these different times that Ursula has like helped her out and been nice to her, and like and then like thinks back to like one final shot of Shiny Chariot like disappearing into the night sky, like telling her to believe in themselves. And Akko like cries and runs off yelling, "It's a lie!"
Yep.
And yeah. So then when she's gone, Qua tells Ursula she doesn't think Akko will continue searching for the words anymore. And Ursula just stands defeated on top of the roof as a single firework goes off in the night sky behind her. And that's the end of the episode.
Yeah, I was completely blindsided by this bombshell dropping. I was like, wow. So Shiny Chariot is, you know, the best person out there. I mean, she's clearly not happy about what she did, but
yeah, she must have felt like she had to do it to finish getting all of the words.
Yeah, now I want her reasoning why she did it. So
yeah, like it's I mean, maybe it is like an evil act. Like maybe she convinced herself that she needed to do this, like in order to finish the words, and maybe she was wrong, and maybe that's why she failed. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting to see like Ursula like finally understanding what happened with her, at least partially. And I can't wait for the next couple episodes to see as this finishes up. Because God, it's so good.
This show is super good. Yeah. Wow, 30 minutes and we've talked about 2 shows.
Very exciting.
Yeah. The two big shows. I'm really happy with Alice and Zoroku, and it's obvious we're both just in love with Little Witch Academia. But that's probably why we talk so much about them. But anyways, Mondays, Grimoire of Zero. Yeah, I just want to make a quick note here. I saw in your notes you put something about the translation being weird on Crunchyroll.
Yeah, a little bit. You go first. Yeah,
I watched it on Amazon Strike, and where.
Oh wait, I watched it on Amazon Strike too. Sorry, yeah, that was a mistake by me.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't know it was on Crunchyroll. But anyways, I didn't notice it, but when Holden was referring to Albus, he would refer to her as young lady. I didn't see the him stuff. Yeah,
there was like a couple lines where Holden was saying him, and actually, was it Hold'em or was it Mercenary? I can't remember, but they were referring to Albus as him, and I think Hold'em refers to him. So he says him at least in one or two lines, and I was just like,
I could see Mercenary doing that because
Mercenary's thought of him
time.
as a him for all this time, and then but then I don't know. It was just like kind of messy. I don't know, translation wise. Like I wonder if in those lines, if the actual line actually said him, or if it was the Crunchyroll translator, or sorry, not Crunchyroll, the Anime Strike translator, like forgetting like what had happened and not really knowing how to refer to Albus. I don't know. It's hard to say.
But anyways, the Two Beasts Fallen are discussing with Albus, and they're discussing about Albus and why did she have to go as far as like cross-dressing. Mercenary's like surprised by this. And he like makes a joke basically just to mess with Hold'em. He's like, shouldn't Serena's granddaughter be beautiful and have big boobs? And Hold'em, because Serena has always been described as that. So yeah. It's kind of funny. It riles Hold'em up, and he like replies with, "It's okay, she'll be rocking an hourglass in no time." And I laughed. I laughed. That was pretty funny.
That was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, but then Alice finally wakes up, and Hold'em is just so happy about it. He just like runs over and hugs her, and I'm about ready to say him. Just holds
I know.
her.
It's hard. It's hard,
yes. And like hugs her, and he's like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're safe and alive." And like Albus screams, and then that's when it cuts to the OP. And then it comes back to a shot of like Hold'em with his face all beat up because Albus beat the crap out of him. But now since they know Albus is the granddaughter, they kind of lost their lead on where the book might be. Since all the sorcerers who joined Sorcerers of Zero signed a blood contract. Oh, well, I'm sorry. They go on to discuss, plans to how can they, fix this situation. Albus tells us, all the sorcerers who joined Zero signed a blood contract, basically meaning nobody can harm him. They keep referring to this guy as him, the leader of this thing. So Albus can't kill him or hurt him, I guess. And basically, him is just the person that has the possession in the book. And they also think, Zero has an ability to deny magic. So Albus proposes they create 5 magic circles, which is, what do they call that?
Pentagram? Like a pentagram?
Yeah, a giant pentagram around the whole kingdom. And if they do these 5 magic circles, they'll allow Zero to cast her magic, therefore eliminating all the magic. And then they can just start over from zero. And that would also take care of the rogue witches. The problem being they don't have Zero right now. She's locked in a castle. But Albus, Mercenary doesn't know that. But Albus goes ahead and fills him in on what happened to Zero when he was gone. And that she did get hurt. And it was probably due to Mercenary, being hurt also. But then because at one point earlier, in one of the earlier episodes, they found, I think, Mercenary by his hair or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
So they're going to use that same spell, it's like a divination spell or whatever, to locate Zero. But they need something personal of hers for a tracking charm to work. The only thing they can think of was the ratty cloak of hers that they let the shopkeeper keep.
Oh, God.
Dude, this is scene, wow.
It's fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, but that's about as far as I get before 13's minions show up. And the minions have orders to capture them alive and specifically not to harm Mercenary since it will hurt Zero instead. They eventually get chased into a canyon where his minions cause like a rock slide, but Mercenary like yells for Hold'em to run through the falling rocks, and he runs through and gets to the other side, and then he throws Albus up over this rock slide like a football so that Hold'em can catch her. And then Mercenary himself climbs over the rubble. And that's how they got away from their pursuers. They get back to the castle and the guards won't let them in late at night. But Mercenary acts like he might eat them and they eventually let him in. It's kind of funny. It's played as a pretty funny scene. Mm-hmm. They get to the shop where they see the shopkeeper inside admiring the cloak that he has framed. Oh boy,
It's like
it's just
pinned up and framed. Oh my god. And he's like talking to it.
how he's the happiest man in the world, and just, oh man, it is so bad. They even comment, they're like, why is he talking to it? But they end up busting in, and they're like, hey, they give him like a bag of coins and then just like rip it off the thing, and he's like so freaking distraught. They have to like tie him up, and he's crying and throwing a fit, and Albus takes a little bit of pity on him and offers him Zero's socks in return.
He's like, has she worn them? Will she take them off in front of me first?
How long has she worn them? Yeah, he wants to see her take them off. I was like, wow.
Oh my god. This guy is fucking, he needs help.
So Hold'em draws the spell on the floor for the divination, whatever, and they throw it in there, and like he's like, are you gonna burn it? No, you can't burn it. If you're gonna burn it, burn me with it. I was like, Jesus. And finally Mercenary just gags the guy. It was bad. So Albus performs a spell, and they find out where her location is. So Mercenary makes for Zero, while Albus and Hold'em start on the 5 magic circles around the kingdom. They're on like their second one when they start to get surrounded by people like strong magic users, and they're preparing for a fight, but it turns out it's the Sorcerers of Zero. They are well acquainted with each other, and leader of the group has these giant disproportionately drawn boobs. I say this because it pulled me right out of the story.
They were gigantic.
I was like, what was with this character's design? Jesus. Like, I mean, I usually wouldn't.
I liked her hair. She had this like red hair with like a long braid running down her back. But yeah, her chest was just like enormous. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, fun pillows if I ever saw some.
God, yeah.
The sorcerers talk about how it's like time for the final battle when like Albus tells them her idea, but then they all like sadly they're like, him told them that you would say this, and then that now you are a traitor. So they end up shackling Hold'em and Albus and taking him away. And like meanwhile, Mercenary's been like trying to scale this cliff and then the castle wall this entire time. And like at one point he fell down, and he was like close to the top, and he fell down, but managed to get a foothold or something, handhold in the cliff and save himself. But that's basically the end of the episode of him still climbing back up top trying to get him. I probably could have talked more about their interaction with the Sorcerers of Zero, but that's just what it boiled down to. Yeah. There's not much more there. Like the only thing I had issue with this episode was just like Mercenary climbing the wall. So like the first time he's climbing the castle wall, he's like using his like daggers to like jab them into the wall and like be able to like climb up it, but then they get too dull to even use anymore, so he like no I think that's when he switched from the cliff to the castle itself.
Okay, yeah,
that's what happened.
But then he falls down again, and like then he starts climbing up with his bare hands. It's like, and it's like a sheer cliff wall. So like I guess maybe he had found the places to hold before, and like maybe like by digging the daggers in, like he would have been able to like, I don't know. It was just like, I just saw Wonder Woman. There's this part early in the movie where
I watched it yesterday too.
Oh, so you know the part where she's like climbing the castle wall and she's like digging her hands into it? I was like, oh, that's what Mercenary's doing. He's Wonder Woman right now.
That's where your mind went?
Yeah, exactly. It was like the same thing. I saw these like right back to back. So I was like, oh, there you go.
Man. Yeah, we'll have to talk about Wonder Woman on Wednesday.
On the podcast.
Yeah,
we will. Yeah. But anyway, the only other things I really like Hold'em and Mercenary's banter and like tough guy teamwork and stuff. It's fun.
It is good.
I like that part. Also, I'm also still annoyed that Zero is still locked in this room. But I thought about it a little bit more this episode, and I think part of the reason like why she won't like just attack 13 and try to get out is that she's so disappointed that Mercenary doesn't believe in her. And
I thought he kind of had her. Well, we know she can't leave the room because he has it sealed with like magic or whatever.
Yeah, right? But even like, so he came into her room briefly this episode and opened the door. Like she could have attacked him then and tried to escape. But
she did throw a spoon at him.
I think that's true. She did throw a spoon, little tiny spoon. I think she's like disappointed both in like 13 and in Mercenary for like not believing in her, basically. Mm-hmm. And so she's just like, fine, I'll stay here and like be trapped and until somebody like changes their damn mind and like figures shit out. So I think that's where she's at right now. So let's move on. The next show on Wednesdays, we got Sakura Quest, and episode 10 is called The Dragon's Soft Spot. So
the show is getting funnier to me for some reason. They're putting in lots of jokes.
Yeah, there are definitely more jokes like per episode now, like, and there are more jokes that actually like work per episode too. Mm-hmm. And it's also time for the Ririko arc. So the episode starts off with a flashback of her in elementary school reading a book about the Loch Ness monster and other like unidentified monsters and stuff. Like Mothman is on the page too. And like while the other girls and boys in her classroom are like playing and socializing, she's just sitting to the side because she's always been viewed as like a weirdo and a loner. So
I want to make a quick. No, I think it's pretty cool that when they talk about Riri, I feel like the show is talking to like some people who possibly grew up as kind of an outcast for things they liked. And like an example, you know, people who like anime sometimes are looked at as outcasts or something. I guess if you wear it too proudly on your sleeve or something like that. Yeah, and that's what I kind of get that. So it's kind of cool. It's probably speaking to a bit of their audience a little bit, and probably even like bad otakus over in Japan. And when I mean bad otakus, I mean like the ones who like literally live in their room.
Yeah,
don't
like
do anything.
Hikikomori.
Hikikomoris.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, but I was fortunate. I never had that problem. I socialized totally fine. But it's just kind of neat to see them possibly speak to people like that. So anyways,
it's always good to see. So back in the present, the girls are all eating dinner at the diner, and Riri has to leave to go home, and Shiori drives her. And Shiori tells her that she feels that Ririko has changed a little bit since Yoshino came to town and they started this big project, and that she's like a little bit more Genki now, like she's a little bit more energetic. And Ririko really wonders to herself if she actually has changed. So Karota is showing Yoshino that the singles from the local community club, so like unmarried people at least, have organized a matchmaking tour called Rural Romance in Manoyama.
Where is this club? I need to join it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's just go to the countryside and meet beautiful Japanese women. It'd be great.
From the city.
Yeah. So Kindaichi, he's a police officer from the town. He came to Karota to complain that only 3 women signed up for the tour and that they need to find a way to get some city girls to settle down in Manoyama. It's a crisis. They need to do it. So the girls set out to rewrite the plan for the 3-day, 2-night matchmaking tour, and they drive around town and they're just coming up with all these ideas for like fun activities for women that they would enjoy in the town. And like Ririko's idea is like she suggests that they have them get their blood sucked by a leech to cleanse them because it's like some Indian Ayurvedan like health ritual.
I've
like,
heard this before, but
I was like, Ririko, calm the fuck down. Like this is not going to happen. But yeah, the other girls come up with some other more normal stuff. And they get to Shiori's house and her mother is like serving them like lunch, and like she suggests teaching the women the Manoyama dance, which is a dance that all of Manoyama girls learn when they are young, and it's a traditional dance passed down through the generations that might be interesting to these women. But Riri says, I can't dance, and Yoshino reassures her saying, oh, I'm bad at dancing too, but don't worry, we can all learn together. And as queen, she needs to know the dance inside and out, so Shiori offers to teach Yoshino. But Riri again says like she doesn't think she'll be able to do it, and she's really hesitant about it. And so Shiori just tells her, fine, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. It's fine. So Shiori's mother realizes something's kind of wrong, so she insists on driving Ririko home. And Riri tells her that she doesn't like the Manoyama dance because she doesn't like being told to do something just because of a tradition. And Shiori's mom says Riri reminds her of her husband, and that it's a good thing, despite what she might think, because she likes people who are unique. So anyway, Riri is sitting at her desk at home, and she's thinking back to when she met Shiori when they were kids. Shiori was the one to approach her, even though she was a loner, and she was interested in her like weird like shrimp thing that she had like created in class, and it's like some like prehistoric like shrimp like animal. Like I can't.
I've seen that before.
It's like Anomalocaris or something. She said. I think.
Yeah, I think it's supposedly supposed to be like one of the very first complex life forms. I think is what its big deal is.
Yeah. And then we also see Riri in dance class as a little girl, and she's learning the Manoyama dance, but she doesn't really like it, and she does it at first, but then she sits in the corner and kind of sulks and doesn't want to join in with the group for whatever reason. I can remember times like that when I was a kid when I just didn't want to do things and just sat off to the side. Like,
yeah,
not often, but just like sometimes I just didn't want to do something. I don't know. So yeah, Maki and Yoshino the next day meet the three women who showed up for the romance tour at the train station.
Which one's your favorite?
They're all pretty. They're not all like gorgeous models, but they're somewhere in between like normal looking and like gorgeous. They're like all very above average looking.
I think I like short hair girl.
I think she's probably my favorite too. I like the first girl and the last girl. The last girl was the short-haired one. The first one is named, what's her name? Koyomi, I think, because she gets a big part in this episode. Kiyomi, that's her name.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, they're all at first a little put off when they realize that it's just the three of them that have made it here. But Yoshino tells them, don't worry, you can think about it as a reverse harem.
That's awesome.
I was like, yes. So they meet some of the community club members at a welcome lunch, the ones who don't have to work during the day. They're not that impressive. Like, one of them is like, I'm studying to be a speed eater. I was like, oh god,
dude, you skipped probably one of my favorite scenes when they're getting on the bus.
Oh yeah, the bus driver's there, and they're like, oh, he's really cute. And then yeah, and then he's like, yes, ladies, don't worry, I can do anything.
He calls them
you need.
Princesses and stuff like that. And then
she's like, oh yeah, you take it, yeah.
And two of the girls are like blushing about it, and the short hair girl like looks at him and is like, please don't tell me that worked on you. I lost it, dude. It was so funny.
Yeah, and then like he says something else, and then Yoshino's like, be quiet, you're a married man. And they're like, oh, he's married.
Yeah, that was really great.
So yeah, so they meet some of these guys at lunch. And Kosuke also joins a little late, even though he's like a high school student. And two of the women
he's graduating next year, man. All right.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She's fine. So yeah, these two women like look at each other and like, oh, how cute, a high school student. And then like they ask each other, wait, that's illegal though, isn't it? And Angelica's daughter like barely holds in her anger as she calls the women like old hags when she sees them lusting after Kosuke, who she has a big crush on. So then Sandal-san shows up, and he's playing his violin. He's playing Mendelssohn's Wedding March for some reason. And
the show even points out, they're like, why did you choose this song?
Why is he playing that song?
Was it Maki? I think you said it, maybe.
I think it's Maki, yeah. So yeah, then they all get back on the bus, and Sandal-san has now joined them. And Yoshino asks him if he understands that he's barging in on a matchmaking tour, and he's like, "Yes, I am the ultimate match 3 master." So he thinks this is like a match 3 game, not a matchmaking trip.
He's particularly good with the blues.
Oh yeah, the blue pieces.
Yeah, and like two of the girls are like completely smitten with him right now too.
Yeah, they're like, oh, he's Scandinavian. Ooh. So
that long blonde hair and that blue eyes, ladies.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Go on.
It turns out that the community club from the town overheard what was going on. From the town over heard what was going on. And so now that town's men have all shown up, too. So, like,
that's
the
crazy.
whole Monoyama, like, main street is like a herd of beasts, as they say, stalking these 3 poor women. But when they get off the bus, Kindaichi, the police officer, greets them, and he sees the first girl, Kiyomi, has like a piece of red somen noodle on her shoulder, which is, the red somen, like the red string of fate, is supposed to tie you to your lover. So when she sees him take the red somen noodle, she's like, ooh. And the other women are like, wait, did that actually? No, it's Yoshino who's like, wait, did that actually work?
Yeah, like this, I don't know. The show did not start off this funny, but it's like super funny now. I really like it. Once we got past that stupid movie shooting arc,
oh yeah,
I've really loved this whole series. But keep going.
So that night, they hold a barbecue to continue the tour, and Kindaichi tells Kiyomi, the girl who he took the somen noodle off of, that he'll make her forget about a guy who recently dumped her, because like the other women's like, yeah, she was just recently let down, and she's like, I'll make you forget. And the other guys are like, you can't say that, like they haven't said that since like like years ago. And then like the women are like, well, they don't say that line in dramas anymore, so it kind of makes it new and refreshing. And the other guys are like, wait, that worked? I just like all these jokes about like, wait, that actually worked?
Yeah, it's a pretty good ongoing joke.
Yeah, and so Sandal-san vaguely tells Yoshino and Ruri about how he's searching for some old romantic place or tale, like some woman, and it's very unclear what he's talking about now, but it becomes more clear as the episode goes on. So the girls, except for Riri, perform the Manuyama dance dressed in yukata, and as they're doing this, Karota tells Kiyomi that a dragon came to Manuyama long ago and took the form of a young woman making her nest in the pond by the barbecue where they're having it. However, the dragon hates revelry, which is like partying and dancing. So when they dance and they play music, and the dragon will stay away, and that's why they've passed down this Manuyama dance. And he also mentions that there's like a stone idol somewhere nearby, where the idol of the dragon, if they want to go look at it. Riri is like listening to this story, and I think that she identifies with the dragon lady clearly, because like it's like everybody's dancing and having fun, and the dragon is isolated and alone and stays away. And I think so Riri starts to walk away from the performance, and it starts pouring rain, and Ririko is walking alone through it, just thinking to herself. And the people back at the barbecue like run to find cover under trees, and then Kindaichi, Kiyomi, Yoshi, and Shiori make it into a shed where they find the stone idol of the dragon that Karota was telling them about.
It's a mini shrine.
Yeah, a little mini shrine. Yeah, I called it a shed. That's probably like
it's like
it's really irreverent, but it is like a little shed. I'm sorry. Kiyomi says that it looks like no one's been taking care of it, and then there's like a lightning strike and a loud clap of thunder, which causes her to jump and accidentally knock the idol off of its pedestal, which breaks its head off as it hits the ground. And they're like, oh shit, that's not good. Also, just before this, they said like the dragon is a water god. So, and then the rain starts pouring even harder, and it storms even harder. And then there's this weird scene where like an evil looking dude like climbs out of the pond, and we only see his face briefly. I was like, what the fuck?
It was weird. It just makes you go, what, is Riri going to get raped or what? Jesus Christ.
Please don't do that. That was weird though. I want to know what that guy's story is. Clearly it's going to be like something dumb, something goofy, but like it seems like he's like an evil guy.
They're playing him as a bad guy, but I'm sure he's probably going to be like a total good guy or something.
He's probably going to be like one of the guys from the community club in the other town who's like trying to find the women or something. Anyway.
Oh, they even, at one point they even, somebody said something to one of the girls about, you know, why don't you try to find a man and get married? Yeah. Oh man, it's my favorite girl and I can't think of her name with the glasses.
Oh, Sanae. Yeah.
Sanae. I should just think of Alice and Zoroku.
Yeah, similar name.
Yeah, so like they even say something to Sanae, and she's like, no, I'm focusing on my career and stuff right now. And then like the bookstore owner makes a comment. He's like, hey, stay at home husband's not bad. And I'm like, I would totally be a stay at home husband.
Yeah,
don't worry.
Sounds
this
like
house
a good deal.
The house would be, if I had that much time, yes, the house and the yard would be taken care of amazingly well. And yeah, I already cook anyway, so that's just a plus. But anyways,
watch a ton of anime.
I could do these anime podcasts would definitely be a lot easier. Because basically I go to work and I come home and I'm like, I got to jam in a review somewhere in my evening schedule.
Yeah. So yeah, meanwhile, Riri is sheltering from the rain at the bus stop, and that's basically the end of the episode.
So she's kind of shivering too.
Yeah, she's shivering. I think it's clear that Riri identifies with this dragon spirit and is alone, and when they find a way to make her happy and bring her back into the like group, they'll solve this. But yeah. You have any other thoughts on this episode?
That was it.
Yeah, it was basically, it's like the first part of Riri's arc. Mm-hmm. I'm glad we're getting to her arc because she's the weird one and I like her. So
yeah, and like I said, I think some people probably identify with her, so that's really nice. But moving on to, we are still on Wednesdays. To to Bcom's still favorite show, Busou Shoujo Machiavellianism, Armed Girls Machiavellianism, whatever. Episode 10, The Terrifying Blade, Tsukuyo Inaba.
Also known as the Blind Loli.
Yeah, this is an interesting character. Anyways, we open up with Inaba slicing at Nomaru, and she doesn't slice him, she just stops, but she does it so fast that Nomaru doesn't even see her draw her sword and let alone sheath it back. So he's just like, what? She's stupid super fast. Mm-hmm. She goes on explaining she was told that he was allowed 2 transgressions, but he has already exceeded that. Once when he broke into the girls' dorm. Second, when he broke into the girls' bath and fought Tamaba. And then he did it a 3rd time when he ignored her summons because he was passed out. But she's particularly mad at the first one because her attendant is the one who manages the dorms. And, it's a burden on her shoulders. And then Bcom shed a tear when a butterfly flied by and she cut it in half.
Shit, she just fucking... Just slice this poor butterfly in half. She's like, well, I can't tell the difference between butterflies and moths because I can only hear them. I was like, fuck you. Fucking kill a butterfly, bitch. Nomaru is even like, girls your age should love butterflies.
Yeah, he even says that. Yeah, so it's just a setup so that we can find out she's blind. And she makes up for it because she has excellent hearing. So she's what, Daredevil?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And Nomaru actually recognizes Inaba's techniques because the old man he trained with taught him that style. So they both come from the same school of kung fu or whatever they do. But if you remember in an earlier episode, Nomaru had an accident and he can't hold a sword anymore or something like that. So he had to develop his own style. But he recognizes all her moves and stuff. So that was kind of cool. Back on the rooftop, Warabi's minions have shown up and they get their butts kicked by Amau or whatever you want to say that. Amau?
Yeah, Amau. Yeah, I don't know.
Amau. And she's stupid tough. She takes a wrench to the back of the head and doesn't even flinch. But due to some of the things Inaba has said, Nomaru finally figures out Amau is the person from the past that defeated him. He then runs from Inaba, infuriating her towards the rooftop because he can hear the battle going on up there. When he gets to the rooftop, he finds everybody beaten up and runs to Warabi, who had her eyelids slashed open. It was weird. He notices that she's badly wounded and yells for help, and that's when suddenly the principal appears behind him, and he notes he's like, I didn't even hear or feel her presence here. So he's like, that's crazy to him. But because of all the screaming earlier, Mary and Rin have run out to the fountain at the school, and Amao had already left that rooftop, and she's down there confronting Inaba. And she tells them what they do. They ask her to demand to say what those screams were about. Then let's get jumpy here. It goes back to the rooftop, and that's when Nomaru noticed that you feel the principal's presence. But she says she can take care of everybody here, and he should focus attention on the battle beginning down by the fountain. But Mary and Rin then launch themselves at Mao, who they're obviously no match for her, and they just literally get defeated in one move. And then after them, she turns her sights on Nono and Choka, who are there. And for a minute, I was like, who's this other character? But I forgot her wig's not on.
That's so funny that you say that, because when I was watching the episode, I was like, I wonder if Leo's going to remember this is Choka. Because she doesn't have the same hair. And I was thinking about not just you, but other viewers too. She only appeared with this weird black short hair very briefly.
It's blue.
Blue. Yeah. It's like a dark blue. I don't know.
It's a dark blue.
But I was wondering if people would recognize her.
It was only for a brief second, but I went, who? Oh, that's Choka. That's literally what went through my mind. It was said and done, but I had to think about it for a second. But then Inaba, she quickly steps in and she asks Nono if they're friends. And Nono almost feels like she's threatened. So she's like, yes, we're friends. And then that proceeds to make Inaba say, I will not let you lay hands on any of my friends or something like this. And then there's just this super lengthy description from Inaba about why her techniques are superior.
Yeah.
Which was, it's okay. But
it's basically that Amo, she has the auto counter because like she can like stop any attack, but Tsukuyu's lightning fast attacks are so fast that they like happen like before like anybody can even respond.
I think it was something like she has to have that auto counter because she doesn't use a weapon or something like that.
Yeah, and they're both different types of lightning at different poles at different ends of the spectrum, basically.
Yeah, it's just watch it. But she finally attacks Mao, and it looks like she was going to kill her, but for some dumb reason, her sword is made from a zinc alloy, so it's like way more brittle than a regular steel sword. Obviously,
it's a toy sword for a little lowly girl who can't handle adult swords because she's so cute.
Have you seen her fight? I think she's totally capable of using a real sword. I just have no. This was just stuck in the show for reasons I don't know. Yeah. But anyways, Amao's auto counterattack worked, and Inaba has taken a wound to like her side, and like the top of her sword's broken off, and then like Inaba goes in for another attack, but then Nomaru shows up and pulls her out of the way and goes for Amao, and then they just end the scene with both of them yelling each other's names. This show is silly.
I really that last scene where Nomura pulls what's her name, Tsukuyu out of the way.
Inaba.
That was really well animated, actually. Like it was really nice and fluid, like her going into the background, him coming into the foreground. That actually looked really good. I was impressed by that scene. One thing I don't really get is like why Amo, whatever her name is fighting everybody. Like, what is her motivation? Do you have a good sense of that?
Last episode when she was fighting Tamaba, it was because she did something to Nomura and she took offense to it.
Okay. And so then, she has history with Nomura and okay.
Yeah, and she took offense to it, and so she beat up Tamaba, and then that's when Warabi showed up and started fighting her for for beating up Tamaba or something like that. Why she went downstairs and went to Inaba, I don't really know.
I think everything in this show boils down to they all want Nomura's dick. So that's the motivation.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
There's no reason to really think much beyond that.
No.
Also, I was annoyed by, what's her name? Inaba's little cute loli coughs throughout the entire episode. I'm so sick.
My eyelids had been slashed open. I got blood in my eyes.
Well, that was crazy with Warabi. Like, she got a cut so deep into her forehead that like she literally will need to have surgery before she can open her eyes again on her own. That was pretty nuts.
Yeah, because Amal, like, she's honed her body into a blade, so like she sliced. Yeah, and at first when they did the shot, they just show her sliced, and you see it from her perspective, and you see blood run into her eyes.
Yeah, and it's like
you never see where exactly she got cut until like the principal explains that.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Oh man, do the next show, and I'm going to take a quick nap.
Okay. There's a fun part in the middle, though. All right, so Thursdays, we got Tsuki ga Kirei, and episode 9 is directed by Hayao Miyazaki, and it's called The Wind Rises. No, I'm just joking. It wasn't directed by Hayao Miyazaki. They just chose the same title. It starts with Kotaro pondering how to fill his post-middle school plans questionnaire. Because in Japan, like, you have to have your entire life planned out in middle school, or else you're an idiot. So, at practice...
Well, one of the other podcasts we listened to, they were actual teachers in Japan. I remember them saying, like, in elementary school, the kids have all kinds of fun, but then it's like, I think it was middle school, everything gets like super serious and it's no longer fun anymore.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I just remember that. Just a little FYI on Japanese schools and how they work.
So then we see Akane at practice, and she's telling her friends that she's still thinking about doing track in high school, and they're preparing for the fall track meet, which is going to be their last track meet together in middle school. Afterwards, Akane goes to meet Kotaro at the bookstore, and he asks her if she's chosen a high school yet, and she hasn't. And then Kotaro proposes, hey, maybe we should try to go to the same school if we can, and Akane agrees with him. At home, though, Akane's dad announces that he's got some news. He's being reshuffled again by his company, and they may need to move again for his job closer to Chiba. And this would be good for Ayane, who's Akane's sister, because she goes to a school closer to there, so it would be nice for her. But
yeah, I think they his job situation, I think the reshuffles happen every once in a while, so like it's expected.
Yeah, it's kind of expected. Like, so, and Akane is like disappointed, but she also understands that this will have to happen.
Yeah.
And her mother says that she's heard from like a yoga instructor she knows that like Komei Private High School is a good school in Chiba, and that Akane should consider it. So Kotoro's mom tells him at their dinner that he needs to start thinking about his future as well and to pick a high school. And his parents proceed to have a conversation in front of him about how he's putting all his problems off and not focusing on his future. And God, I could just picture my own parents having the exact same conversation when I was in like middle school and high school. And like, oh my God, I hated
for
this
real.
Scene. Yeah, not just like, yeah, like my mom and dad would like totally argue back and forth about like if I wasn't like doing well enough like in high school, or wasn't concentrating on getting into college enough, and like putting things off. And because like I was a really good student, but I was also really lazy and had terrible work ethic. So yeah, my mom was like constantly like saying I needed to fix my work ethic, and my dad was like, yeah, he's all right. So it's like very similar thing.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, different upbringing. Mine wasn't like that at all.
Yeah. So after festival practice, Kotaro chats with his mentor and asks him what he thinks about light novels. Because remember that publisher told him you should write light novels.
Yep.
And his mentor says that, you know, like regular novels, some light novels are good and some of them suck. I just want to say, I think there's like a little bit bigger ratio of light novels that suck, though.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, there probably
really
is. Well, it's more of a amateur class, also. So
yeah, for sure.
It's just kind of to be suspected, but yeah, that's definitely, there should be an exception to that. But yeah, it's a little bit more broader. You're right.
So that night, Akane messages Kotaro, and they have a really freaking cute conversation filled with emojis on their phone, on their Line Messenger, about how Kotoro's trying to study, but he ended up reading, and how Akane has her last track meet coming up, but she doesn't want Kotaro to come because she'd be too embarrassed. So the next day is the day of Akane's track meet, and she's getting nervous and excited, and we see that Kotaro, against her wishes, has decided to sneakily attend, even though she told him not to. He buys a program and like looks up her name and stuff and smiles, and he texts her to like run like mad and have fun when she tells him that she's nervous before the race. So he watches her run, and she does her 100-meter dash and sets a personal best time of 13.70 seconds. And she kind of looks back at the track, breathing hard after she ran the race, knowing that it's her last race as a senior in middle school. And she smiles because she's proud of what she's accomplished. So afterwards, Kotaro kind of like sees her talking with her teammates, but, you know, walks away. He goes to leave. Chinatsu notices that he was there, though, but she doesn't say anything as she watches him walk away. Afterwards, Chinatsu, Akane, and Aoi are eating bentos together for lunch. And they realize that after 3 years, their track careers together are basically over. And they start talking about it, and they basically all start to make each other cry. And then they thank each other for everything they've done for each other at the past 3 years. They all break down crying. And I really identified with this moment for like a couple of different reasons. Like in high school, when my like baseball career came to an end, that was like a really emotional moment for me. Like people I've been playing baseball with since I was a little kid. And also in high school, my final orchestra concert was a lot like this in my senior year, because three of my
band geek.
I was an orchestra geek, also kind of a band geek too. I was in jazz band too, but that was piano, not like a band instrument. But I played violin since third grade, and to this day, 3 of my best friends in life are from that third grade orchestra class, like learning how to play instruments.
Wow, we are learning so much about you today, and I see why you like this show way more than I do, because you connect with everything, and I connect with none of this.
Yeah, it's like that with other shows too. There's shows that like other people connect with, and I get nothing out of. It's just this one manages to make me think back on a lot of things that I experienced, and so like I remember after this final orchestra concert, coming to the realization that, hey, I'm never gonna play with these guys again that I spent every year from 3rd grade on playing concerts with. And like I remember one of my friends was going off to join the Marines after that, and we kind of like looked at each other as we were packing up our instruments. We both started crying like babies and like hugging each other.
Oh God.
Yeah. It was funny because like 2 girls from the orchestra came in. They were like, "Oh, they're crying," and they started crying.
Oh Jesus!
It was, but yeah, I liked this moment in the show. It reminded me of all those sweet times. So anyway, Kira manages to cheer the girls up by like Akane turns around while she's crying. He's like, "I'm sorry for laughing, but your nose looks really red." And then like the other girls look at each other and they all start laughing at themselves. So. After the meet, Kira asks Akane if she's going to continue running like he plans to do. And she says that she will, and he tells her last year's 3rd years told him to go to a competitive school because the environment and equipment there will be a lot nicer for track.
Makes sense.
And, yeah, so Akane tells him, though, that she's likely moving to Chiba, and he's like surprised by that, but he tells her, well, I think Kome, the school that her mom had mentioned, is a good school for track in Chiba. So... And then Hira is clearly still in love with Akane, and he's clearly upset that she may be moving. But she also tells him it's not set in stone.
Reassert this.
Oh yeah, so just after that scene, Hira asks the track girls if they want to go to the Kawagoe festival as the last thing they do together as a team, and Akane like immediately agrees to go. And then Shinatsu like whispers to her, but like, what about Izumi-kun? And then Akane whispers back, it's okay because Kotaro is going to be performing in the Hayashi dance, so it's fine. Hira doesn't really know this. He thinks he kind of just got like a last chance date with Akane maybe. But as they're on the train going back, Shinatsu and Hira are sort of breaking off from the group a little bit. And Shinatsu asks him if he has given up on Akane, if he hasn't given up, and he tells her that he hasn't even taken his shot yet, and Shinatsu kind of smiles and says, you can't change how you feel, because she's sort of going through the same thing still. Back home, Kotaro's dad has like a very brief conversation about high school with Kotaro. He basically just comes in the room and says, go wherever you need to go to do what you love and take it easy. He's just like such a laid-back parent, but he just wants Kotaro to be happy, like despite his mom like constantly pressing and pushing. So Kotaro texts Akane that there's something he needs to apologize for, and tells her that he sneakily went to the track meet against her wishes, and she's like surprised, but she says it's fine. But then tells him that she also might be moving to Chiba, and that's how the episode ends. And then we only had 2 shorts. The first short was Ayane's boyfriend 2. This was the better one. Ayane's walking with her friends and telling them they should go out with a guy who has high specs, you know, money, smarts, everything, like stable job. And she's like walking on the street, and she almost bumps into this like really hot looking construction worker who smiles at her, and then she like immediately falls in love with him.
This is the one, is what she says.
Yeah, so this is the one. And we zoom forward in time. She's talking to Akane back home, and she's like, yeah, it's really important when you're looking for a guy that you find one with a good trade skill. Like, she's like completely shifted what she wants, and I thought that was really funny.
Yeah, it is good.
And the second like one is just dumb. It's like guys girl talk and girls guy talk. And it's just the one with Ira and her boyfriend. It's again talking about like the love hotel that they went to in Kyoto, and he's like, yeah, we went to it and her parents paid for it because like she's so rich. It was freaking awesome. And then the girls version is like, yeah, he made me pay for it. He's such a parasite. And they're like, oh, he's gross. So yeah. Just another solid episode. Not like a lot happened, but I think it's interesting to like consider like, hey, do we try to stay together like when we're choosing different schools? That's something that came up for me with college, and I chose to just go where I wanted to go, and and I think that was the right thing to do, because that relationship did not last anyway. So
yeah, I never went to college because I couldn't take any more school. I think I've voiced before how much I hate school.
Well, don't worry, I didn't make it through college because I couldn't take any more school.
Oh, damn, that sucks.
I had to transfer to another college at the end to finish up because, like, yeah, I was so burnt out after high school that I could barely take it anymore.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So, let's move on to Fridays. Rage of Bahamut, Virgin Soul. Woo, did I really like this episode.
Great episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Episode 10, The Way She Was. So, 7 years ago, Jean d'Arc was saving some citizens from Citizen Kane from a demon attack. But the battle was over, and like this little girl came up to give her a flower, and she like has a little conversation with her, and everybody's like looking on and like, oh, you know, she's like the hope for everybody. But then some like big ass demon bursts from the rubble nearby, and it goes after the little girl. But then John jumps in front of it to, you know, block his hand, and it swats her out of the way, and she gets a pretty bad head injury. And then she's like laying there looking at the little girl, and she sees the monster. It's off screen kind of, but you see the monster like kill the little girl. It's
like it punches it into the ground, kind of like how the demon chick got punched into the ground.
Yeah,
it's like, let's have a moment of silence for this little girl now too.
Jesus, yeah, it's so that's really dark, and that's this whole episode is just dark, but it's like good dark. She eventually wakes up in her bed, and Kaiser is sitting next to her, and her head's all bandaged and stuff. And she asks about the little girl, and he informs her she did not survive. And like he had like gathered the flowers and put them in a vase on her window, so she sees those also. And then later on, John is walking through the castle when she overhears like some guards who are like not happy taking orders from her and blah 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 blah, just saying bad stuff about her, and she's just, you know, kind of overhears it. And then, excuse me, jeez. Anyways, later on, she is practicing with another knight, and it looks like she's kind of going to win, but then she ends up losing in the end. And it also seems her head injury is still bothering her. That's when the other knight lifts his helmet, and you see that it was the knight that was bad mouthing her earlier. And then he like makes this sarcastic remark, and his friends smirk. But then Bartholomew, who I don't think we've talked about at all, is one of the other officers. He steps in and he's like, it's okay, you'll be facing me next anyways. And he's like, oh shit. So yeah, they're all gonna get their asses beat anyways. And then Jean is later on talking to Kaiser and Bartholomew. What kind of a name is Bartholomew?
Yeah, Bartholomew is a weird spelling, like Bartholomew, like Bart, like from The Simpsons. That I get, but Bartholomew is a weird one.
I live in Bartholomew County, so like I see this name and I have to stop myself from saying Bartholomew every single time.
Huh? It's probably just an easier name for Japanese pronunciation. I would assume. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, but anyway, she's talking to Kaiser and Bartholomew, and she's saying, you know, even though she lost her powers 3 years ago when she was killing some of the gods, so if anybody watched the first season, then you kind of remember that and whatnot. But yeah, she's not as good as she once was, but she still wants to be as much help as possible and serve the Orleans Knights as the captain until she is eventually discharged or replaced or something like that, because it's the only thing she's ever done, so she wants to keep doing it. Then we have the coronation of Cherios when he takes the throne, and like everybody's like all his advisors are sort of like don't know what to do. He's, you know, more, I don't know, how would you describe him?
Just like, yeah, he's just like taking the throne basically by force. Like he climbs up the steps and like grabs the crown off from somebody, and it's just like he's decided that like he's taking this throne, and they're all like kind of surprised that he's like being so bold. I
will say I like their totally different design on the crown. How it's more like, it makes me think of like a sailor's hat kind of.
Yeah, that was interesting.
It's just a really interesting take, and I think it makes him look really cool. It's
he does, he looks like a badass. Yeah.
It's kind of like JoJo's hat.
Oh yeah, it's true. Yeah, like
I just now thought that. I was like, it's kind of the same. That's probably why I immediately associated it with being a badass.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but anyways, he makes his little speech about he declares the days when men feared the demons and bowed down to the gods is over. And of course, Jean is against this because she worships the gods. And like Cherios looks at her because he's obviously expecting trouble from her. But later on, she of course goes to see him and voice her own opinion about it. But Cherios wants Jean to give her allegiance to him since she was a former saint. And if she gives allegiance to him, then that will help other people who are still resisting him probably fall to the wayside or submit, because then they're like, oh, we almost worship Jean in our own way because she was the closest one to the gods and whatnot. Of course, she doesn't concede and she's forced to leave the castle. She eventually gets just a nice little cottage outside the city, and they make it glaringly obvious she's barely making it by. She's super poor, barely has any food to eat. And then one night she's praying to the god Michael, however you want to say it.
The angel Michael, yeah.
Yeah,
I guess in this universe they call him like one of the gods or like the world of gods, but I guess it's basically the angel Michael, yeah.
Yeah. So she's praying to him when like she's suddenly racked with like pain, and this ball of light starts being pulled from her abdomen, and like she's like, it's very obvious this is extremely painful for her. It's like basically I think they're trying to react, childbirth is totally what they're doing.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is like one of the coolest takes on like an immaculate conception that I've seen in fiction. Like it was just a really gritty, like cool scene, like where it's just like this otherworldly thing is like coming out of you, almost like an alien or something.
I did totally think aliens. So.
Yeah.
But then the ball of light turns into a toddler Muguro, not a baby. He's already a toddler. It starts
as like a fetus and then like instantly grows into a toddler already.
Yeah. So that was interesting to me. I guess they're just trying to get the passage of time right. And if he was a baby, nothing would make sense. But anyways, it's basically just a long montage of her raising him and him having fun and doing all kinds of other stuff. And at this point, I will note he has wings and he can like fly around a little bit.
And blonde hair, yes.
And blonde hair, which still even... I still don't know why it's black. I still don't know why it's black. But anyways,
I do.
He's got blonde hair, and at one point, she even carves him like a little wooden horse as a toy. It was like really cute and adorable and stuff. But then there's one night, there's this super heavy storm. It's coming down really hard. The wind's blowing pretty hard. When they hear a thump outside, and of course, Jean goes to investigate, where she finds Sophia collapse outside and brings her in. She has apparently been running from Cherios's Onyx Knights, who immediately show up and kick in the door. And, they're like, where is she? Where are you hiding her? And one of the guys ends up holding Jean up by her neck and puts a knife to her throat, asking all these questions. This causes Muguro to just basically freak out and use his power. So, of course, the Knights collapse. And also when he does this, they just do a quick shot of like Gabrielle up in wherever their temple is, like sensing this super quick. Mm-hmm. And Jean grabs Muguro and escapes on horseback before the Onyx Knights have time to recover. But they get on the horses and they pursue her anyways. And then just a quick shot of Sophia stumbling out like the closet where she was hiding the whole time.
I guess that makes sense, though. There was a callback then because, like, last episode, I think Sophia, like, whispered to Muguro, "You saved me once." This is when he saved her. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
No, John. She was talking about John. Your mother saved me once.
Oh, your mother saved me once. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. This is when that happened. Mm-hmm. I didn't put that together when I was watching this episode. I just thought of it now. But yeah.
Oh yeah, I totally got that. But the Onyx Knights report back and tell Cherios, and he demands they both be killed immediately. They have apparently been trapped inside the city. It's where they have chased them to, and we cut back to them, those two running, and they're like hiding under a bridge and whatnot, and they're running away, and they eventually end up at like a dead end, But then she looks over and sees some wooden shutters, and they end up going through the window. And the place they broke it into seems to be a demon slaughterhouse. That's what I got from it, man. Yeah. I don't know about you.
Yeah, like a slave slaughterhouse, like one of those places where they're just chopping demons up and using them for parts. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it was. You know, and she's at her wit's end. She doesn't know what to do. So she comes up with an idea. She grabs some shears and cuts into a dead demon corpse and then dumps the blood all over Muguro. And then, like, hugging him, she then cuts off his wings, which was kind of, ugh.
That was a cool looking scene though, because it was like it was like spraying not only blood, but then these like light particles out of his back, like this godly like aura was just spraying out of him. It was like, oh my god.
Yeah. So she's basically kind of disguised him at this point to look like one of the demons. They would have known right away if his wings were still on. Mm-hmm. So, you know, the lengths you go through as a mother to protect your children.
Protect your child. Yeah.
Yeah, I said at the beginning of this review, this episode is dark. So there you go. She ends up, you know, kind of hiding him sort of in like a box just kind of out of sight. And then when the knights come in, she grabs a similar dead corpse body and throws it over her shoulders and runs off, basically tricking the knights into thinking she's carrying Muguro now.
Exactly.
And so they chase her off. And then it just cuts back to her basically telling this story to... darn it,
Nina.
Nina. I was like, no, it's not no. That's a different show. Yeah, to Nina, who is like bawling tears, like, I'm sure Muguro is the same. And we find it, like, we already had confirmation, but she's like, oh, I thought he was a girl this whole time.
She finally realizes she's an idiot.
Yeah, and man, this episode was so dark and fantastic, and it was really nice too, because since we found out Jean was in the prison. The whole time I'm like, why is she in the prison? Explain this to me. And it finally did. So I was super happy.
Yeah. And I loved there's a lot of beautiful background music throughout like all those flashback scenes and throughout the episode. I noticed
too.
Yeah, just this choir singing that sounded really fantastic. It was really well recorded. And I really hope that's all on the soundtrack eventually, because I think I'll probably pick up this soundtrack when it comes out. And yeah, so... like, I don't know if it really explains why Muguro's hair turned black, but like, yeah, when the demon blood is dumped on him, it basically completely dyes his hair from blonde to black. And then like, maybe we can assume that it like seeped even into like the pores of his head. And that's why it continues to grow black instead of growing out blonde again. I don't know.
I don't think that's how it works, but
yeah,
there's just no explanation.
Demon blood, it could be different. I have no idea. That's my headcanon for why his hair is black now. Or maybe he continued to dye his hair black afterwards because of his mother. I don't know. Something like that. But man, yeah, what a like badass episode. And I loved seeing Jeanne d'Arc's backstory, because she's such a cool character, not only in this season, but in season 1. She's just an awesome character. There was that brief scene when she's talking to Bartholomew and Kaiser when she says, like, I've been stripped of my godly powers, like, after, like, the battle with Bahamut or whatever.
Yeah.
And so...
because
like,
she supposedly harmed a god or killed a couple or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it was like, it was so shitty that people are treating her like this weak woman when she used to be this, like, angelic being who would kick anybody's ass. But, yeah. Anyway. Yeah, let's move on to Leo's favorite show on Saturday. We have Recreators.
I hate this show the more it goes on.
Episode 9, The World Requires Choice and Resolution.
I as a comparison, Alice and Zoroku, all their characters, everything they do, for the most part, I mean like 99% of the time, makes total sense. It's logical. And specifically Sota, but even other people, I don't get why they do the things they do. I mean, my note is hate, Sota's, character. That's all I wrote down for the show. I think I was halfway through. I think that's when he was talking to Shark Tooth Girl. And I was just like, this stupid character. But yes, please explain this episode to me.
Yeah, let's get to that. Yeah, it took me a while to figure out parts of this episode myself. So So it starts with Momika, who is floating above the city, and she's just bleeding to death after her encounter with Altair at the end of last episode. So drops of her blood just happen to fall out of the sky and land on this like sausage on a stick that Magane, the shark tooth girl, is eating. And she looks up to see Momika just plunging from the sky like a block away. So she happily like goes in search of her body. And like when she gets there, she eats like the blood-covered sausage anyway, and is just generally delighted with the situation. And she looks at Momika's lifeless body on the ground.
Oh, it's not lifeless yet.
Not lifeless, but before the credits, it looks like she's not moving. So, but after the credits, Momika is like barely breathing, barely alive, and is asking for Alice, but Magane tells her she's not her friend, so she can't help. And Momika just wants to tell Alice to stop Altair because she figured out that she's truly trying to destroy the world. And Magane thinks to herself, this is something worth lying about. So Aliceteria's lance lands next to Magane and Momika as she arrives, and she tells her to back off, and Magane lies and said, I was just here protecting Momika. And then so Alice holds Momika in her arms, but she's like really far gone at this point, and can basically only ask.
I would like to say the amount of blood is like ridiculous.
Yeah, and Magane even says the same thing later in the episode too.
It comes up later in the episode, yeah. But, but at this point, I was like, how is she not dead?
Yeah, I don't think I had that in my notes. So like, yeah, Magane's line is basically like, yeah, so much blood came out of that, such a tiny body. It was so weird. Magane. So, but Momika tells Alice, like, basically the only thing she can get out is that, like, you need to listen to what I told Magane, and then, like, save that person is, like, all she can say. And then the light just goes out of Momika's eyes, and she dies, and she transforms into hundreds of tiny blue cubes that just float up into the night sky for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's but like data or something. I want to make a note. If their body's going to dissolve, shouldn't have like all the blood and then the ribbon that Magane kept, shouldn't that have disappeared also? Because like her clothes and everything of her went. I just thought it's just an observation I made.
That's a very good point. Yeah, it probably should.
Yeah, because she holds that ribbon later on for when she's talking to Sota, and I'm like, shouldn't that have been gone too?
Yeah, any trace of her existence on the world, you would think, would just go. But yeah.
But it makes it interesting. Since she died in the real world, can they bring her back again, maybe?
I think, yes.
Because the way when she turned the blue cubes, to me, it was almost like them saying she's going back to her other world or something like that.
You know, it'd be really interesting if in the next episode there's like a news report saying that like Magical Slayer Momika has been canceled. Like, that'd be so like dark but funny at the same time.
Yeah, because it's a children's show in that show.
Yeah. Oh man, I really wonder how they're gonna handle that, if she'll be able to come back. I hope she can come back because I really like her character. She's like one of my favorite parts about the show. So we'll see though. But Alice asks Magane what Momika's dying wish was, and of course Magane has no intention of telling the truth. So she tells her, she mentioned to stop somebody. I think the name was Meteora, and I think she wanted to help somebody named Altair. And then Alice rides her unicorn off into the sky to go beat the shit out of Meteora. And,
and it no longer sounds like a weed eater, so I don't know what that was about. Oh, yeah. Dude, and then like the first or second episode where she shows up, it straight up sounds like a weed eater. Like, yeah, like I was sitting there, I was watching this, like I had to glance out the window because I'm like, is somebody weed eating outside?
So yeah, Alice flies off, and then Magane is just giggling to herself like diabolically, but at the same time Alice rides her unicorn off into the sky to go find Meteora, and Magane giggles to herself diabolically, and she celebrates and then looks at their phone, which has Soda's number on it, and Magane calls Soda to have him come meet with her, and for some reason he does, because he's
this is one of my very first problem on Soda's makes no sense. His character, why he does what he does, no sense. Hate it. Go on.
So Magane goes into this long bullshit spiel about how Sota is a walking contradiction because he badly wants to tell Meteora what's going on with him, but at the same time can't tell her no matter what, because it's like the one thing he doesn't want to tell anybody. And she's figured out this from listening to like half a conversation that they had. So Magane thinks that he was involved in something where he physically can't see the girl he killed or anymore. She's basically just figuring out that he killed a girl and he thinks he's responsible or something. And he's like horrified that she's figuring this out. And in the end, Magane tells Sota he just wants him to be her messenger, and he wants him to tell Silesia that Meteora is a traitor working for the other side. She's just trying to spread even more chaos around, basically. So,
dude, and for a minute, I was like, he's actually going to fucking do this.
Yeah, I thought he was going to do it too. Yeah.
Oh, I hate this show.
Otherwise, I didn't really understand the point of that whole scene, because I thought she was like using her power to get him twisted up in a bunch of words and then like make him spread even more like dissent and confusion. But Magane tells Sota that Mamika died after going to see Meteora, and Sota doesn't. Oh, sorry, guy. Well, no, but Magane says Meteora at first. Like, she's still trying to trick him, but then he's like, that doesn't make sense. And then he's like, no, Magane, you must have killed Mamika. And Sota eventually figures out through like a bunch of twisted clues that it must have been Altair who was the one who killed Mamika. This whole scene is kind of drawn out and weird, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me in retrospect.
I feel like the writer of this show
is not smart enough to refer to
yeah, he thinks he's more clever than he actually is.
Yes, definitely.
And you have to be, like, I know it's been said before, but if you write a character, you can only write a character as smart as you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, and I think that's what we're running into is he's not smart enough to write these scenes that they want to do. I'm not calling the creator an idiot. I just think that's what's happening.
I'll call him an idiot in a couple minutes. So Magane blames Sota, telling him he's now killed 2 girls, Mamika being one of them. And then this being because he had the conversation with Mamika before she went to go to Altair, so clearly he's responsible for sending her to her death. So anyway, Sota asks Magane how she can do what she's doing, like messing with these people like this, and she tells him she basically gets off on watching people do what she set them up to do. She hops up on this fence next to him, and as Sota is like down on his knees, like
dude, this scene.
Yeah, she takes her like foot, like her shoe, and like runs it through his hair, and then like lifts his chin up with her other foot, and then like wraps her legs around his head and pulls them in towards her skirt, kind of seductively, but also very evilly.
I do think this is okay, because it's just kind of showing a more visual look of her dominating Sota.
It reminded me of like a spider like drawing someone into their web, and that's basically what she does with her words.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
That made sense to me. And yeah, she's like saying like, don't worry, I'll plant a landmine for Altair as well and make sure it blows up in her face too. Anyway, at this point, Yuya shows up. And he asks Magane to stop trying to fool Sota. And he tells Sota that he would probably... He's probably the kind of guy who like learned as a kid that, oh, you should listen to other people, but Magane is the type of evil bitch who will take advantage of that. So you need to just stay away from her.
And I want to say, it feels like to me, they had been standing there the whole conversation.
Oh, well, you mean like Meteora and Yuya who like show up? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they just arrived, but I don't know. I think they maybe heard a little bit more than what it's like we're led to believe. Like they didn't just like get there and just hear this. Like, yeah. Sota starts crying and talks like Yuya and Magane begin to fight, but then Meteora comes over to Sota, and Sota starts like crying into her chest, like telling her like all of this like random shit that only half makes sense to Meteora, probably about like Shimazaki, like the girl who he felt like he killed because
unless she was standing there and heard the whole conversation.
Yeah, then it would have made sense. And
because it seems like she's like, I know and I forgive you, which is something I said last episode. I'm like, it's obvious Meteora would forgive you if you just freaking confessed already. So yeah.
And then, so yeah, Meteora says, like, I was a fool I knew something was wrong when you were talking to me before and, like, doing that stupid beating around the bush thing that I, like, quoted last podcast. And I should have just asked you then what was going on. And then Meteora tells Sota he can't hide from the pain of knowing he's hurt somebody, but he has to embrace it and remember the lesson instead. So anyway, Magane is able to nullify like Yuya's ultimate attack by reversing cause and effect by making Yuya deny what she asked. This is what Meteora explains. She like explains how Magane is using her powers. And this is where I just looking back on the scenes before, when I was like rewatching them to try and figure out what the hell Magane was saying to Sota, there were plenty of times where like he had denied already what she was saying. Like, so she could have like used her power at many different points to just make him do what she wanted her to do. What she wanted him to do, I think. Like, cause
before when I first tried to describe her power, I didn't understand it, and I still don't understand it now.
Yeah, it's like, okay, so it's basically, I guess in battle, maybe she can reverse like physics of the world if you deny something that she asks you. It's like, so like when she asked Sota, like, or did you kill somebody? He's like, no, I didn't kill somebody. He denied it. So she could have used her power then. And then like, I think Yuya says something like that. He denies that she can beat him or something with his attack. And then he launches the attack and she nullifies it by reversing cause and effect.
It's all over the place for me. Yeah. I don't get it. And
so, Meteora kind of explains this, and Magane is like pissed at her for explaining her magic trick. And Magane offers a bargain to Meteora of defeating Altair together, trying to trick Meteora into falling into one of her word traps as well, I think. But Meteora is too smart to fall for it. And she doesn't have any more time to play with her because Alice arrives like a meteor out of the sky and gets ready to fight Meteora at the end of the episode, and that's where it ends. And yeah, the problem I'm really starting to have with the show, despite all of the weird logical like inconsistencies, is that it's all talk and no actual action. Just the ratio of talking to actual cool action scenes is getting to the point of like Fate Zero levels, where that's a thing that a lot of people do not like about Fate Zero, is that it's just like there's episodes where just people stand around talking forever. And just talk. And it's like, yeah, sometimes that's interesting if the dialogue is really well written. And I think Fate Zero is much better written than this show, at least at certain times. But everything with Magane is just like a web of lies and deceit. And it's very hard, especially in a translated work, to like get a great sense of what she's actually conveying at any given point. So I think this suffers from like being translated to English as well. But man, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, everything she does. And it doesn't make a sense like the way Sota reacts to it. And it doesn't make sense the way Meteora reacts to everything. It's just, I don't know. It needs to get back on track, and hopefully there's a big fight next episode and not just more talking. But we'll see.
I will say that the next episode was already out, so like it immediately went to it, and I saw like the first couple seconds, and it was Alice attacking her. So
okay,
maybe
that's exciting. Good.
I'm sure they're going to stop after another 20 seconds, and then they're going to talk some more.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next show because I'm very excited for this one. I watched this almost a week ago, but then I rewatched it just today just to do better notes on it, basically.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't take notes the first time, basically, when I was watching it. So it's My Hero Academia Season 2, Episode 23, Shoto Todoroki Origin. I will note that I think it was fun that the Anime News Network reviewer who wrote the review for this episode said it was the best episode of anime that they've ever reviewed. I think that's a little...
The best episode ever?
Yeah, that they've ever reviewed. So, yeah. That's pretty high praise. I think it deserves very high praise. I think it was a very good episode. So, Todoroki starts off this episode and he's like hell-bent on showing his father that he can beat anyone without using his flame quirk. But Deku has other plans. So we start out with a flashback Todoroki's like crying in his mother's arms and telling her, and she's telling him that like it's okay, you can be a hero. It's okay for you to be a hero if that's what you want. Because I think his father wants him to be a villain. He wants him to take down All Might. So we get some really friggin' hype music as the match is about to begin, and see everybody like looking on in anticipation. The animation throughout this episode is good. I'll single out one part in particular later on, but it's just really high level, sharp animation throughout. So the fight starts. Todoroki launches a huge ice attack at Deku, who responds by snapping his right thumb with his middle finger, using All for One to break his middle finger and destroy like the ice that Todoroki sent at him with like this gust of wind that like breaks through the ice and sends a like cold gust all around the stadium. Like everybody in the stands like starts shivering. So Todoroki sends this attack again, and Deku's the same thing with his index finger. So he's got 2 fingers broken now. And then he thinks to himself, I don't have enough data on how to beat Todoroki because it's always an instant win with him in all of his other fights. So I just need to make this an endurance match. I need to last long enough to find an opening. So at this point, Deku like repels another attack, breaking his ring finger. And he thinks to himself, I only have 5 more chances. So I think he's thinking that like he can break his pinky and then like the other 4 non-thumbs on his left hand. That's like all the chances he would have. So that's what he's thinking at this point. Bakugo in the stands is looking at the fight and saying that there must be a physical limit to Todoroki's powers, and Deku just needs to last long enough, basically. So Deku breaks his pinky now, so his whole right hand is done, and Todoroki changes up his strategy, builds an ice bridge to rush at Deku, and Deku starts using the fingers on his left hand, but misses Todoroki, who comes plunging down at him and punches the floor with ice, sending Deku flying back, but not out of bounds. And like a piece of ice grabs his foot from the floor, sticking it in place, and Todoroki charges up, will be like a massive finisher attack, and Deku frantically tries to snap the fingers on his left hand, but he can't, so he instead just decides to use his entire left hand, up to his forearm, to send a gigantic punch at Todoroki, which creates a gust of wind that pushes him back into this pylon of ice that he made so he wouldn't get pushed out of bounds. So Deku at this point is like in awe of Todoroki's power, but then notices that Todoroki's right arm is trembling. And Todoroki tells Deku, with your arms like that, you can't fight anymore, can you? And he sends another ice attack at Deku. And just before the ice reaches him, he says, like in this really guttural voice, like, where are you looking? And sends a huge gust back at Todoroki, using his right hand again, forcing Todoroki to frantically build another ice pylon behind him before he goes out of bounds one more time. So we see that Deku like re-broke his index finger that was already broken to use that power. And so Todoroki wonders, like, why is Deku going so far? Why is he doing this? And so Deku, now drawn like completely in speed lines, going up and down, says, "You're trembling, Todoroki," and that there's like a limit to how much cold Todoroki's body can take. So it's probably something you could probably just solve by warming up your left side. So Deku's pissed that everyone is fighting with everything they have, but Todoroki thinks he can win with just half of his own strength.
Yeah.
And so Deku says, "You haven't put a single scratch on me yet," and then screams at him, "Come at me with everything you've got." It's really good. So Todoroki asks Deku if Endeavor like bought him off to say these words. And then he charges at him, pissed. And Deku and Bakugo both realize that Todoroki is slower moving than before. And Deku starts like just dodging all of his attacks. But Todoroki gets very close to Deku, who thinks like, and he thinks to himself, like, imagine the microwave. He's trying to remember All Might's teaching so he could control his power. And he unleashes like a right punch to Todoroki's gut that sends him like flying all the way back across the stage, but not out of bounds. And Todoroki managed to freeze Deku's left arm with a touch from his ice powers before he got sent flying. So more ice attacks come. Deku is still dodging them at this point. The referee talks to Midnight on the sideline. He's like, should we stop the match? Like, Deku has all this adrenaline pumping through him, but Like, he probably doesn't realize the full extent of the pain and the damage he's causing to himself. And even Recovery Girl won't be able to like heal all these injuries in just one go. But they don't stop it. So Todoroki sends an attack at Deku, who can no longer even make a fist with his right hand. It's so broken. So he puts his thumb inside the corner of his mouth and flicks it out, damaging the whole left side of his face with the all-for-one power. And this sends like another massive gust at Todoroki, stopping him one more time. And so Deku says his reason for fighting so hard and reaching so deep is he just wants to live up to everyone's expectations and just be a cool fucking hero. That's his only reason. He knows it's like not the best reason, but whatever. He wants to be a cool hero. So yeah, Deku tells Todoroki to stop messing around. Todoroki gets sent back into a flashback where his father is like brutally training him at 5 years old. And his mother tries to help.
You gotta start him young, man.
Yeah, I guess so. His mother's like trying to say like, oh, don't do that. And like Endeavor just like slaps her away. And meanwhile, Deku back in the present is throwing another massive punch at Todoroki as he's like in the process of like remembering these memories that he'd like kind of blocked away, it seems like. He re-enters his flashback and he sees that what look like his brothers and sister playing in the courtyard below. And Endeavor's like, don't look at them, like they're from a different world than you. And it seems like they're like failed experiments of children that he already had that aren't good enough to beat All Might, so he doesn't even care about them. And then later, Todoroki overhears his mother calling her own mom on the phone and saying that she's going crazy because the children become more and more like Endeavor every day, and she feels like she shouldn't be raising them anymore. And that the right side of Shoto's face is becoming very unsightly to her. And so after that, the boiling water incident happens, obviously. And we see Endeavor talking to Todoroki's like, where's mommy? And she's like, I put her in the hospital because she hurt you. And I was like, oh, shit.
Would you like to know how I got these scars?
Jesus. Basically.
Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, it's the whole dark background. So anyway, Todoroki's still determined at this point to reject his father's power for obvious reasons. He's a piece of shit after all these memories resurface. But Deku screams like he's like a mind reader, I guess. He's like, it's your power, isn't it? And Todoroki remembers watching All Might on TV as a kid, who was saying that even though you inherit your quirks from your parents, you have to recognize that it's your own flesh and blood that make you become the hero that you want to be. So it's all about you. No matter what your parents are, you can be something different. And so Todoroki remembers his mother's words that she told him that he'd forgotten. And she said that you don't have to be a prisoner of your blood. It's okay for you to become what you want to be. And at that point, Todoroki's body starts to, like the left side starts to ignite with flame, and then a huge fire erupts from him. And then like Ochiko, who's up in the stands, like reels back saying, oh no, the fire's here. Like, it's pretty cute. And All Might thinks like, oh, you forced him to use his left side. Don't tell me you're trying to save young Todoroki, Deku. And so the ice starts to melt from Todoroki's right side of his body as he's like raging with flame. And he tells Deku, you're the one who's screwing around now for helping your opponent. And Endeavor at this point is just gleeful. He realizes like he feels he's won. And he's like, yes, Todoroki, embrace yourself, accept yourself, and surpass me. And Todoroki tells Deku, don't blame me for what happens next. And this is where Bones' animator, Yutaka Nakamura, shows up and does the key animation for this entire scene, which is so fucking cool. Like, so Todoroki unleashes all of his power, both the ice and the fire, and Deku like charges up like his left leg and his whole right arm with all for one and launches his strongest attack. And the referee and Midnight are like, oh god, this is gonna be really bad. And so like the referee like starts like pouring like concrete in between them to try and form like a barrier to keep them from killing each other, and like Midnight tries to do something as well. So they've put up these like concrete walls in between their just like massive attacks that are coming, and they hit each other, and like there's a huge explosion, and all of the concrete forms like these little what are called the Utapon cubes because they're named after Yutaka Nakamura. who always uses this cube thing in a lot of the animation he does. And all the cubes like fall to the ground, and there's a bunch of smoke, and like the announcer and Aiza was like, yeah, like the air was thoroughly cooled from before, and the massive explosion was from like the heat meeting that cooled air. And so the smoke is still clearing, and we see Deku once the smoke clears, and he just slumps over in a heap out of bounds, totally defeated. And Todoroki, the left side of his clothing having been burned away completely, has a stunned look on his face, and Midnight declares that he's won the match. Holy shit, was that episode hype as fuck. Like, it was awesome. I was watching this with my friend last weekend, and we were just like losing our shit watching the episode. It was so much fun. I just love seeing like a shonen that's like animated to this level, and is just, the music was pumping. It was so good. And man, they just went all out with this. What did you think of the episode, Leo?
Yeah, it's definitely cool. The animation was, and like I said before when I started this, I read the manga, so I already kind of know what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pay more attention to like animation and the just good execution. And yeah, it was pretty intense. I wasn't as blown away as you were, but man, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also didn't think it was like the best episode of anime I've ever seen, but I thought it was like one of the hypest like shonen episodes I've seen in a while. Like it really got me going. I was like, yes, kill each other.
Oh God!
But I also liked the background with like Todoroki's character. Todoroki is such an interesting character with his mother and his father and like opposing viewpoints. So I liked it a lot.
That's awesome. No, I won't say that. It's not. Well, it's not a spoiler, but that just kind of drops here.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense though.
Yeah, but anyways, you want to talk about some Attack on Titan season 2?
Boy, do I!
I see you added a lot to my notes.
There were a couple things I just wanted to add because they dropped a lot of info in this episode, and I haven't read the manga, but manga readers were going like, holy shit, they just spoil a bunch of stuff from late in the manga in this episode. So
yeah, so episode 35 called Children. Another scouting group has shown up at Connie's village, and they have a portrait of his parents, and they're holding up the portrait, and like the resemblance between the Titan stuck in the house and his mother is like really close. Like it's basically spot on. So Reiner, I wrote this. Yeah, I needed to come back and recheck this, but, so Reiner, like next scene, Reiner drops like some bombshell information here that, Ymir was a Titan at some point and figure out how to transform back. And it glossed over it at first, but no, they came back to revisit it. And
yeah.
But,
and the only other important line he says, he's talking about like, we can trust Ymir because of her desire to help Krista, and also Krista would be useful to us because she's a member of an important family in the church. And then he says like,
she's royalty.
Yeah,
you know that.
Yeah, and he says this weird code word thing. If Eren turns out not to be the coordinate, our job isn't over yet.
I totally missed that.
Yeah, it was a weird little thing that was just kind of in passing. But everything that Berthold and Reiner say to each other is kind of important now because it's all clues. So
okay, so I wrote down this line that says, Berthold has this line where he says, we can take Annie, Krista, and that back home. And I put, what the heck is that?
Yeah, I didn't get that the first time around either. I think he was talking about the coordinates, whatever the coordinate is.
Where did you get that? I don't remember it mentioning this at all.
It's it's in a line just before this happens. Like, I think Berthold or Reiner they say to each other, if Eren turns out not to be the coordinate, our job isn't over yet. So like their job
is a coordinate?
I don't know. Their job has been to search for this coordinate, whatever the hell it is. I think it's like a special Titan or a special shapeshifter Titan. So yeah.
I'm Googling it. Coordinate.
Well, don't say anything though, because it could be a total spoiler. But yeah, coordinates are like directions, like or like your location of something geographically.
Well, it can be used as a verb, an adjective, and a noun.
Yeah, or you can coordinate your plans with somebody else. Yeah, kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's basically some kind of leader of either the Titans or like the shapeshifter Titans. I don't know. Who knows?
And I will tell you, none of these make sense. All right. All right, let's go on with the episode. Reiner suggests Burntholt tells Annie how he really feels because lol, he has a crush on her. It's just a funny scene. It's not important. It's just funny. Reiner says it's time to go, and of course, Eren fights back. And the show just has this wrestling match going on in the background as Burntholt and Ymir are having their own conversation. Burntholt asks Ymir if she remembers who she ate before she turned back into a human. She doesn't, but she guesses since it was 5 years ago that it might be one of their comrades. Burntholt's silence basically says yes. And this whole conversation is just Reiner and Eren in the background, like comically wrestling each other.
It was really
funny.
like
4-year-olds throwing a temper tantrum. I was just like, what is... I wasn't even looking at Ymir and Burntholt. I was watching those two. I'm like, what are they doing? I don't even think the show even respects Eren at this point either. They're just making fun of him. Because we know I dislike Eren. Yeah, like, so Burntholt continues to keep dropping some more bombs here on how they all were at one point in time wandering around as Titans before they changed back. Just like, what? Mm-hmm. And Ymir thinks she has actually been wandering around for like 60 years. That's insane because she's like 20s.
Yeah, I guess when she turned into a Titan, she was kind of preserved in that form.
Yeah. You stop aging when you're in your Titan form, I guess. Yeah, so that's crazy. And then they finally managed to pass Eren out.
Yeah, that was funny.
So now the scouts have arrived and are running through the trees, and Ymir comes to the realization Krista is for sure in the group trying to go after them, because of course Krista would try to save her. And Ymir wants to capture her right then and now, but Reiner explains to her, this is way too risky, you know. We're outnumbered. It's whatever his name is probably out there the best scout guy there is.
Irwin or whatever.
Irwin, yeah, Irwin. And that, like, they stand almost no chance of winning. That's when Ymir has like a flashback of herself as an orphan kid being chosen by a priest to basically pretend to have king's blood for his cult. Mm-hmm. That's what I got from it. So she was like the cult leader. Everybody worshipped her, and they eventually got raided and by some of the guys and by the Kingsmen or whoever, you know. And Ymir ends up lying for her subjects, but it doesn't matter. Everybody gets punished anyways. Yeah. And I want to note this raid group had guns.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out like what time period is this? They almost look like Civil War era, like flintlock guns or something, maybe rifles, or maybe just after that era.
Well, we know this happened probably 60 years ago.
Yeah, at least 60 years ago.
Plus how long she's been aging since she's turned back into a Titan. Yeah. So probably looking 60, 70 years ago, somewhere in there. And there's, you have to pay attention, but they're on the walls that we're familiar with, and they're getting thrown over the edge. And I heard she's getting there, and they throw the person, it's off screen, but they throw the person next to her off. But you hear a weird noise.
Yep. And the light changes a little bit too. You can see it. Yeah. Yeah. And then they throw Ymir off, and you hear that same noise, and they throw her off. And then there's this super quick shot. You see the guy who threw her off with an injector in her hand. Yeah, a syringe.
In their hand. A syringe. So right now it just immediately makes your mind go, they were turning people into Titans for whatever reasons.
Humans turned people into Titans, like maybe to exile them as a punishment, basically. And it's like, holy shit, that changes a lot.
Yeah, so it just raises more questions, which the show is great about. Mm-hmm. So Ymir's roaming around as a Titan for like a long time before she like eventually crawls into a hole, and she's sort of hibernating. And there's just this time lapse. So like she lays in this hole for so long, like it basically gets covered over with dirt. Mm-hmm. And then that was until Reiner and his group basically kind of camped too close to her, and it woke her up. And ate that one guy that died.
Yeah, they ate their friend Marcel. And so this is where I think things get really interesting, because after that happens, you'll get this, but Ymir is able to change into human form after 60 years of being a Titan. So I think we can infer that in order for a Titan to change into a human, they have to eat a shapeshifter. And I think it has to specifically be somebody who can shapeshift, because there's Titans that eat humans all the time and they don't change back. But we know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we know that Reiner and Berthold and Annie can all shapeshift. So we can assume that their friend Marcel probably was shapeshifter too. So I think that Ymir got really lucky by eating him. And by eating him, something changed her body so she could transform back into a human.
Well, the weird thing about that is, why did none of them transform then?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't try to attack her. I'm not sure. That's a
and it
weird
doesn't
thing.
Explain why she didn't then go ahead and eat them either. It just cuts away.
Yeah, maybe she was just happy enough to eat something. I don't know. But then there's the other part of this, when you think about it even further. If I'm right, if my theory is right about why she can change into a human form.
Your theory is wrong.
Then,
okay, go ahead.
Then why can Eren change into a human form as a Titan?
Yeah, because he never.
The question.
He only changed into a Titan when he got swallowed by a Titan, so it's a complete reversal.
Yeah, there's some weird shit going on here. I think we'll look at that as the series goes on. But yeah. Anyway,
it's strange, but she eventually, it just does a different cut to a different scene where she turns back into a human and she goes into. Back into the city, which I wonder how she got in anyways, because they would be super suspicious of a human on the outside of the walls. But she goes back to being a human. She goes back into the city, and that's when she's basically her own little gangster. She's just stealing and doing everything for herself. It's pretty cool. But back to present time, Ymir makes an observation that in this wooded forest, she has the advantage because she can move quickly from tree to tree in her Titan form. And also could easily take Eren from them, considering their large Titan forms would be too slow to stop her and go back to her scouts if they just don't go and get Krista now. So she basically, threatened them, we're getting her now anyways. The scouts see the flash of light that signals somebody has transformed. Erwin issues his orders to prioritize recover and retreat. And just for whatever reason, some random police squad dude gets eaten for dramatic effect. So they're in the woods. They've dismounted their horses. They're using their gear to fly their way through the forest, and they spot Ymir in Titan form, and she's just chilling on a tree, just sitting there hanging out. But then Connie's like, "Everybody, hold off! That's that's Ymir. Don't kill her." And he lands on her and he starts questioning her, And it's really obvious she's just looking for Ymir because she's just looking around at each individual and not answering Connie at all. Krista does show up, and Ymir immediately jumps at her and captures her in her mouth. It almost looks like she killed her. It was kind of weird. This convinces the rest of the squad to think she has sided with Reiner and his group, which she kind of has. But Ymir does make her way back to Reiner, where he transforms. It's pretty cool. He jumps from the limb, and as he's falling through the air, he transforms into the Titan.
Oh yeah.
And then they jump on him and basically just go for a cruise, and the scouts get back on their Titans, and scouts get back on their horses and pursue. I'm sorry, I started to have random music playing while I was doing that, and I was trying to figure out where it was coming from.
That's okay. The episode ended anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of liked Ymir's backstory, which sort of explains a little bit why she cares so much about what happens to Krista. Krista is in this unfair situation where she's actually supposed to be a royal, but she's been cast out by her family by being an extra, so who nobody needed. And
well, she was the daughter of like a whore or like a waitress or something like that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So she was like a bastard child.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
And then like Amir is like sort of the opposite. She was like an orphan child who was taken and thrust upon this like throne, this fake throne, like she was supposed to be the king's blood. So I think she sees in Krista like an injustice that happened to her. And she's like, if I'm not going to lie to myself anymore, then this is the one thing I'm going to try and fix. Because it's like, I can almost fix what happened to me if I fix what happens to her. So I like that. God, I really like Amir's character. And yeah, they revealed all this stuff about how Titans are created. And like, it's pretty nuts to think about.
It just makes you, all it does for me is bring more questions of like, what is going on? How many factions of,
yeah.
And that did explain one, where Ymir came from and why she can do her Titan thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's out of the way.
And I don't fully understand like the church's involvement in all of this, but I think they're probably, if not responsible for creating this like injectable serum that creates titans, at least responsible for spreading its use as like a punishment. I bet the church was behind that at least. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So man, that was a decent episode of Attack on Titan after a couple that were not great. So I was glad that we got all this backstory.
There was some action involved. There were some answers to our questions. There were more things that made us question stuff. So yeah, this is about the end of the episode. Anything else?
No, that's
you want
it.
To add before we end?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Let's go watch Microsoft's E3 press conference.
Oh, you want to? Yeah. Oh yeah. Our 90 plus, as they have said. So this is going to be insane. You want to watch a little Aramanga Sensei before that?
The word want is a strong word, but I guess we'll do that. So thanks for listening. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to us on YouTube to get updates on new podcasts or videos. Our podcast is also available on iTunes, Google Play Music, and other podcast feeds and services. You can also follow us on Twitter at Nerdom and Other for updates and info. See y'all next week.
Yep. Later.
Peace.